When it's time to get serious in your garden, it is time for STIHL, Australia's #1 brand for garden power tools. I'll be telling you about STIHL's great range of battery-powered outdoor equipment a little later in the podcast. But for now, let me just say they're powerful, they're lightweight, quiet, and they give you the power and performance you need to take care of some serious work in your garden. Check out the full range and find your nearest dealer now at stihl.com.au.
A listener production.
I love to grow fruit and veggies at home, and I enjoy the amazing fresh taste this provides. Growing your own food also is great for our environment. But how much can we grow ourselves at home, and how much work does it actually take for a backyard full of veggies? Just how self-sufficient can we be?
There's like 20,000 or more different types of tomatoes in the world, and I reckon I've only tried 1,000, so I've got a long way to go.
Hi, I'm Charlie Albone, and in partnership with STIHL, on this episode of That's How We Grow, I'm catching up with Mark Valencia. After 2 decades in the Australian Army, Mark turned his attention to his backyard and self-sufficiency.
I got a lot of satisfaction out of it, and mentally I started to heal and grow, and yeah, I just love it.
He tracked his journey on social media and his blog Self-Sufficient Me, and his online community has grown to a near 4.5 million followers. He shares all his learnings for maintaining and growing produce, reducing waste and recycling, saving money, and the overall impact his lifestyle has had on his physical and mental health. So today I am very excited to have Mark Valencia as my guest. Now Mark, I've got a confession to make. I'm not someone who normally watches YouTube, but I saw you on the morning show Sunrise and instantly just fell in love with your personality and went straight to your YouTube and started watching from there. So you got a fan in me, and it's exciting to have you on the show. Thank you for coming along.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. I mean, thanks for having me on your show, but I tell you, that Sunrise, I was nervous and they only gave me like 3.5 minutes, and they expressly said, "Oh, Mark, you've only got 3.5 minutes. You need to answer these 3 questions." And I'm freaking out, trying to make the best impression I could in such a short amount of time. I just felt like a big doofus. I'm glad you saw through the doofus part of it.
I mean, I've made a career of feeling like a doofus, so you did a good job. But before you got into gardening, tell me a bit about what you were doing before you started what you do now.
Well, yeah, I was a soldier for 21 years in the Army, and what specifically I was trained in logistics, but I was lucky. I had this career with lots of different hats, so it was like going into work and not knowing what you were doing sort of every day. Like, for example, I went on 3 operations, and only one of them was logistic based. The first one, I was a signaller in the Sahara Desert, trying to connect different units and that right across a big expanse of desert, trying to keep peace as well, of course. And then the other 2 was both operations in East Timor. The first time I was in Dili as a infantry soldier. And The last time I went to East Timor, I was with the 6th Battalion here in Brisbane, and I was in charge of the battle group's logistic assets, right. So all of the vehicles that they used. So I had 3 different roles in 3 different operations, and only one of them really at the end was logistic based.
Wow. Yeah. Did you enjoy being in the Army?
Yeah, I loved it. They really tried to hurt me a lot. And it's a tough job, but it's very rewarding. I mean, for the most part, you have, the population on your side. People seem to respect your service. And for me, I always wanted something that could get me outdoors. I don't think I had a calling to serve, so to speak. It was more, I wanted an outdoor job, and I couldn't think of anything else that would be as good as being in the bush, being a soldier. And that was my picture. And it actually took me around the world several times, and it had me out in the bush more times than I can remember.
Yeah.
So it was perfect for me, really.
And how long did you serve for?
Yeah, 21 years.
Yeah, wow.
And I mean, it was all good as a single guy, but, I got married in 2001 and we had children. And so then I had to make a call you could stay in, but it's very demanding and you're away a lot. And I just wanted to spend more time with family. So yeah, I got out in 2008.
Right. And what did your wife do? Does your wife do?
Well, she was in the army as well. She ran a medical centre. Well, that was one of her last jobs, running a medical centre in Enoggera, but she was medic-based. But she continued on. So I got out and we dropped down to one salary, which in 2008, that was when the global financial crisis was on. So things were tough for everyone, interest rates and, inflation and all that, and problems financially. So it was a bad time to leave a good salary. But when she said, no, I don't want to stay at home, I was a bit hesitant, but I took it as a challenge because I actually felt like I needed a break anyway from my intensive role. And I don't know if you know, but I was severely injured.
Yeah, I've seen the scar, yeah.
I lost my forearm in a parachuting accident. No one should jump out of a perfectly good aircraft, I can tell you.
I haven't. I don't want to. No, thanks.
But I did, and it cost me bad.
Yeah.
I was nearly a goner. It wasn't only because of some really great surgeons that fixed me up. I was the first guy in the world to have a latissimus transfer. So they cut your back muscle out,
yeah,
and they transferred it to where my forearm used to be, and then they put a skin graft for my left thigh over the top, and by some miracle, I got my hand back again.
That's amazing.
But in the end, I was feeling a bit burnt out. So I thought, I'll take the opportunity to be a home dad, and it's challenging. I mean, I got the biggest respect for mums ever because it was hard work, but there was downtime, a lot of downtime. And instead of, doing other things, I probably could have done more housework. But instead of that, I would get outside and I'd dig holes and I'd plant fruit trees and I would make garden beds. And this stuff was good fun for me. And I realised it was helping me mentally too. It was refreshing. It was out with nature.
The physical activity, I'm sure you would have, been used to it and quite enjoyed after the army.
Yeah. And no one was telling me to dig this hole, I didn't have to dig it out of necessity to get away from a bomb or something. I could just dig it for planting something that was going to produce and give me some food in the future. And I got a lot of satisfaction out of it. And mentally, I started to heal and grow. And I just love it.
So did you start with a plan or did you just go out there and start digging holes randomly?
Yeah, no plan.
Right.
And you know what I say now? I say I deliberately made our food forest ad hoc because that's the way I planned it with no plan.
Okay.
But the truth is, I just didn't have a plan. I just wanted to whack trees in and get them to grow as fast as possible. And so I've got citrus mixed with mangoes and loquats and everything all over the place.
But that's good, isn't it? Because it means you've got diversity.
Well, yeah, it turns out, as I learnt more about gardening, turns out this is a good thing to do because you've got that diversity. All the insects and the pests, they naturally get confused and they don't all go to the orchard where all the citrus is and consume all that because there's a glut, because nature always looks at a glut like it's an oversupply, so let's knock it down a bit. That's just a natural thing for nature to do.
Yeah.
And I think that diversity, I think you're dead right, it helps keeping the garden and the pests away.
So where did you learn how to garden then? Was it all just experience or?
Sadly, a lot of it was experience.
That's not sadly.
I wasn't smart enough to read too many books, and I learnt the hard way for a decade.
Yeah.
That was still good. But yes, of course, I started reading books. I've got a library of gardening books that I've read on self-sufficiency, on just normal gardening, from written by all sorts of people and horticulturalists and all that know a lot more than I do. And then I started watching YouTube as well, and I consumed a lot of YouTube. And you've got so many just natural gardeners that you can find online and also bloggers that just share the most intimate and easy to digest tips on how to grow things. And so I just consumed all that information and gradually got better.
At what point did you realise that all the planting you were doing was helping the grocery bill? Because a lot of people have the idea of putting a few plants in to help with the grocery bill. They might put 4 or 5 lettuce in the ground and realize that that's quite hard work, and it doesn't actually make a huge difference. You have a lot more space, so you can plant en masse. But at what point did you really start to realize it was making a difference?
Well, I just got back from Europe, actually, and we love the Mediterranean and European cuisine and all that, and Mediterranean cuisine. A lot of that, well, pretty much everywhere, isn't it? If you look at India, Asia, a lot of them love their herbs. It makes the dish, the herbs and the chilies and all that. If you go to the supermarket, it's fairly expensive. You're paying $5 for a handful of coriander or parsley. Those things can add up. If you want to buy some chilies, I think they're like $26 a kilo or something. So you get 5 chilies, and that might be $2 or $3. And so I found out pretty quickly that if I started with herbs and just had a small herb garden, maybe a couple of metres by a metre wide, and grow a whole selection of herbs in there, some rosemary, these things are really hard to kill. So they're very easy for a beginner gardener like I was. But you saved money not only on having to buy them, but you just plucked what you needed for that dinner, and it just kept growing. So you didn't have to put it in the crisper, forget about it, and then waste $4 because it just went off.
Yes.
Yeah, so herb growing, I found out within a couple of months that I could save money here.
I think the thing with Mediterranean food as well is it's simple ingredients that are flavoured with those herbs. So you don't need a huge ingredient list. You just need a few good tomatoes and a couple of other ingredients and the herbs, and you've got yourself something delicious to eat.
Yeah, that's right. And if you want to go on the cheap, say Asia-wise, rice and flavour it with a bit of chili, chopped up chili, bit of herbs, you've got this really cheap but fulfilling dish for a family like we were that was struggling.
Yeah. So you're an advocate for self-sufficiency. Did that start from the very beginning? Was that from the outset?
To be honest, it was survival. I mean, my grandfather, he was a World War II vet and an ex-farmer. So he was always very handy, and I grew up with my grandfather because I didn't have a father. So my grandfather was a big influence on me, and he would have his own backyard veggie garden, and he grew some fruit trees as well, apple, avocado, some citrus. So we were always eating from the backyard, and I was always with him. And he was really good at DIY, which I'm not. He was a great woodworker, and I'm a terrible one. And I don't know.
I've seen you screw some pallets together.
Yeah, that's about it. Screw a pallet together, and But anyway, at least I can grow something.
Yeah.
And I liked fishing and outdoor stuff, and I still do like fishing. So I had self-sufficiency in the heart, but survival was, if I'm going to be honest, was my reason for growing all the fruit and veg.
Right.
And then I realised that it was good for my physical and mental health. And I realised it wasn't just saving me money, but there was all these different types of advantages for doing this. So then it switched into this self-sufficiency thing is really big. It's really great, and I just love it, and I just wanted to spread the word.
Yeah, great. With your place, you've got lots and lots of raised beds that of things that you found and sort of scavenged from different places. Is that something that grew over time, or did you just go out and try and do the whole thing at once?
Yeah, no, it was like the fruit trees. I just kept on adding to it. I tried to make it into a kind of a rectangle in the backyard and stick to that. And it's kind of all right. Yeah. But really, if you look at it on the ground, cameras don't do it justice in a good way. The cameras make it look better. On the ground, it's a little bit skew and a bit ad hoc. But that's just because I just kept building beds. Like there'd be some tin or something, and I'd make a garden bed. I'd find some sleepers at the tip, and I'd ask if I could take them, or you'd buy them for a couple of dollars at the refuse sale there. And then I'd put this stuff together. And like you said, pallets, I'd get pallets, I'd make compost bays out of them. I've still got compost bays that I made like 15 years ago out of the pallets. And then I started buying some commercially made beds, of course. Like I like the alu zinc ones.
Yes.
I like the recycled plastic beds. Like, they warp a bit, but like my DIY stuff, I don't care how they look as long as they can hold soil and they're easy for me. Yeah, and produce, and they're easy for me to garden in because of all my injuries, and bending over is tough, especially for long periods. So if I'm weeding the garden, there's nothing better than spending a few hours weeding standing up.
Yes.
Rather than bent over and going back, in the evening with a sore back.
But you've got chickens as well. Which came first, the chickens or the beds?
Oh, that's a good question, isn't it? The chickens or the beds? I get it. You know what? I built some sleeper beds, and then we got the chickens. But they're very close at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. Chickens are a fantastic thing to have. I don't have the space for them at the moment, but not even from a sufficiency point of view, because they are great for that. But just as pets, they're fantastic things.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
And they do get to know you, and they can be just like a pet.
Yeah, absolutely.
But how useful are they?
Very.
I mean, they give you eggs, and they also make compost for you, and their manure can be used as fertiliser. All your kitchen scraps, I just throw them all, not in the pen. We've got a circle that's about a foot high, so they can just jump in. But when they rake through it, they don't throw it out, and it stays in there. And it's about 1.5 meters in diameter. And so we throw the kitchen scraps in there, and they get in there and they eat what they want to eat. And they keep turning this stuff. And we also put their bedding and a lot of their poop we scrape up and put in there, and it makes this compost fertiliser. You just wouldn't believe it. It's magic.
Yeah.
And that in the garden is gold. And they do it for free.
Yeah, I know.
Practically.
Yeah. My son broke his arm when we had chickens, and I remember a picture of him with a broken arm on one side and a chicken under the other arm walking around the garden. I do miss having them. And they make eggs, which is amazing.
Yeah. And eggs aren't cheap anymore.
No, they're hard to get at the moment, really hard to get. It's time to take a quick break from That's How We Grow to talk about the team that powers this podcast, STIHL. When the weather warms up, there's nothing better than getting busy out in the garden, especially when you're loaded up with all the best equipment to get the job done. Of course, I'm talking about STIHL battery-powered outdoor equipment. Check it out at stihl.com.au now and see the great range. It's powerful, lightweight, quiet, and gives you the power and performance you need to take care of some serious work in your garden. Pruners and trimmers, mowers and chainsaws, saws, blowers, vacs, and heaps more. The range is absolutely enormous. But you know what's even bigger? The choice of STIHL dealers right around the country. There's over 600 in fact, so you know there's one near you. Get out there, enjoy the sunshine, and get busy in the garden with STIHL battery-powered outdoor equipment. The #1 brand for garden power tools in Australia, and the #1 selling brand of chainsaws worldwide. Check out the full range and find your nearest dealer now at stihl.com.au. That's stihl.com.au. Right, let's get back to the podcast. You like to do a lot of experiments, and the one that I saw recently was with duck eggs, where you took 2 tomatoes and you just grew both the same variety in 2 different pots, and under one you cracked, I think, 6 duck eggs and then planted. Yep. You do a lot of those experiments, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I'm inquisitive like that. I don't keep ducks anymore, but I could never stomach duck eggs. They're just too rich for me. Have you tried duck eggs?
No, I can't say I have.
Yeah, I have a go at one. You'll know what I mean. So what do you do with them? And so I was thinking, can we make fertiliser out of them? And yeah, it turns out that you can. You can crack a few eggs. As long as you don't put the root ball of the plant right into the mush, you leave a bit of a gap, that will dissolve quick enough in the garden. And by the time the roots start to take hold, then they can access those nutrients from those eggs.
Right, and you used 6 for one plant.
Yeah.
Was that just because you had 6 or...?
Yeah, I think so. It was just a guess. Yeah. I would imagine even just one would help.
Yes.
I'm not sure. That's more experiments that I could do.
Do you know, were they old eggs? Like, do you have to wait till they get old? Is it for people who, like, is that an idea for someone if they've gone off, or probably not ideal to buy eggs just to use them for fertiliser?
No, don't do that. No, I mean, it's the same with kitchen scraps. You can bury kitchen scraps just straight into a pot or a container or in the garden. And you can then plant on top of that. I'd give it a few weeks though, sometimes a few months if you've got the time.
Yeah.
And then those kitchen scraps will be pretty much broken down within a few months, and that plant will be accessing those nutrients. You can do it with chickens, because sometimes you'll have chicken eggs that have been gone off, like, our naughty girls might find a hollow log or something and lay in there and you don't know.
Yeah.
And then you find them 3 months later and they're not good to eat. So, instead of chucking them out, just be careful with them, because you don't want a rotten egg exploding on you.
No.
Believe me, that is the stinkiest, worst thing to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, terrible. So, but be careful with them. But you can then break them, put them in the garden, and they will be a great fertiliser. And you've got the calcium of the shells. It takes a while for that calcium to be accessible to plants though, but it eventually breaks down.
Have you found anything that you just find really difficult to grow?
Yeah, garlic.
Yeah.
I love garlic, being the Mediterranean, Italian sort of thing, and Valencia and Spanish in me and all these things. But garlic is hard in the subtropics.
Yes.
I do still keep growing it, and I will continue to try to adapt my garlic year after year to try to get it better. But I haven't grown enough strains of it yet. I'll grow and I'll replant, and then it might all die on me and I'll forget or whatever. But there are some people that contact me in the subtropics around Brisbane and that say that they've been able to do it really successfully.
Right.
But for me, I've just always had a trouble with it. And also large bell capsicums, because of the bloomin' fruit fly.
Yeah, you get fruit fly.
Queensland,
Yeah, terrible.
It's just hard to protect them. And also the big beefsteak tomatoes.
Yes.
So, I grow them, but you have to, it's fiddly, because you've got to bag the fruit and you have to take the time to do that. Otherwise, the inside will just become maggots.
Yes. Which is depressing, isn't it, when you come to take it off? And I guess a lot of people can be put off by the setbacks in gardening, but it didn't seem to worry you.
No.
Did you have a progression of plants that you went from herbs into other things, or did you then go, I got my fruit trees, I got my herbs, I'm just going to try everything else?
Yeah, I just got obsessed, and I still am.
Right.
That's why I like travelling. I like travelling to see if I can find new things to grow. And I like Googling online, and I like watching other people and going on YouTube and seeing, there's something I've never tried before. I've got to try that plant, that fruit, that veggie, that variety of carrot that I haven't tried. And so there's like 20,000 or more different types of tomatoes in the world. And I reckon I've only tried 1,000, so I've got a long way to go. And so, I'm pretty obsessed with trying all these things. And then you find your niches, you find your ones that dominate everything else. Then you can really capitalize on something that you can grow really well. So I wouldn't concentrate on the things that I can't grow that well. I try and I keep trying, but I don't lose sleep over it. But I do capitalize on the things that I can grow really easily. And that's things like, especially through the winter time here, all the brassicas, all the lettuce and all that, all the different salad crops. Yeah. They just grow so easily. And the citrus, the fruit fly here don't ruin the citrus fruit.
Okay.
They mainly ripen all through the winter time. And so the fruit fly is generally dormant. So we have oranges on tap, literally. So much that I get so sick of squeezing them. So that's what I get our boys to do now.
Yes.
It's like, you're on orange squeezing duty. Oh, not again, Dad. And so we've got litres and litres of freshly squeezed orange juice whenever we want it, type of thing, which is a real luxury, because you could pay blooming $5-6 for a glass in a restaurant.
I'll come down to Sydney. It's $15.
Oh, really?
Seems like it sometimes.
Yeah.
How have you found your boys with your gardening? Because they've obviously grown up seeing you outside building this garden and working on it. Are they keen gardeners?
They are, but I tell you a funny story. We just got back from holidays, and the task that I gave the boys was, look after the garden, please. All you need to do, 2 things, water and weed.
How old are
That's
the boys
it.
now?
18 and 21.
Right.
And look, the youngest, we've been here 18 years. He's grown up on this property. And anyway, we get back day one and I go down to the garden and there's potatoes on the lawn in front of the beds. And I found the oldest first. I said, James, what's going on? He goes, oh, no, that was Luke. And anyway, he thought potato plants were weeds.
So pulled them all out.
And he's pulled them all out.
He didn't pull one out and go, oh, there's potatoes attached to that. I'll just leave those.
That's what I said. I said, look, Trongo, you've been eating potatoes all your life.
Yeah.
How did you not know that's a blooming potato? It's that big. It was 6 inches across. It was beautiful. No, I didn't know, Dad.
Sorry, Dad.
Yeah. So, but the good thing is they have grown up loving veggies and being adventurous with food. So they've never been fussy and they've always loved food, and they do like to cook at home. And they do get things from the garden.
Oh,
not
that's good.
Potatoes, but
everything but potatoes.
Yeah,
they're not carbo loading.
No.
Yeah. So you mentioned you learned a lot through YouTube, and you are, well, I'm going to call you a YouTube sensation now, but you're very popular on YouTube. How did that all start?
You tell me. I don't know. I'm just glad I am, because it's gave me a whole new career. So I feel very blessed, and I kind of pinch myself every day that people do want to follow me. And it started mainly in the US.
Did it?
The US, they're very generous, the Americans, with their time and also their money, but their time and their feedback, and they like Aussies, which is good. So I started getting a following there, and then it was only after about 5 years of getting sort of noticed in the States that some people started noticing me here, and I started getting a bit of a following in Australia as well.
Right. So how many followers do you have? Go on, big head yourself
That's
here.
about 2.3 million.
That's amazing, isn't it?
On YouTube.
Yeah. And how much of that is American?
Half of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so about 50%, and then Australia's about 20%, and then there's, India, UK, Canada, South Africa, and then there's, you can niche it right down to Philippines and all that, maybe 1% here and there, Italy, Spain. Yeah. So, I mean,
amazing.
I got noticed on this last trip. I was in Bath, of all places,
That's I'm from close to Bath. I'm from Bristol.
There, of course. Yeah, so we were there, obviously doing the tourist thing, and we're having breakfast in this little cafe. This guy, I tell you not, he walks through the door and he's eyeballed me straight away, and he's pointed at me. He's gone, Mark, self-sufficient me.
Yeah,
in his Pommy accent.
That's
came
great.
Over, shook my hand. That's just really bizarre.
Yeah. So if someone wanted to start out just adding a little bit of self-sufficiency into their life, where do you recommend they start?
I've been asked this question quite a bit, like people commenting, and one of the most popular comments is that, where do I start? And I always say, start growing something that you like to eat, because pretty much most veggies are at the same scale of hard to grow or easy to grow. Yeah. There are a few that are outstanding, depending on your climate, like garlic in the subtropics, and those type of things, depending on the pests maybe as well in your area.
Yeah.
But generally, you pretty much grow something you like, and then once you've mastered that, then you can start growing other things you like, because there's no point in growing radish because it's easy. The seeds sprout in 5 days, and spread them out. They're hard to kill, and if you don't like radish, what's the point? In growing it just because it's easy to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely target something you love to eat, and then grow that, master it, and then slowly branch out. Don't get too big too fast. Don't overwhelm yourself. Start with one garden bed and grow multi things in that one garden bed. If you're on a apartment or something, try growing some Mediterranean herbs, some thyme, some oregano, some rosemary in one container. Maybe the rosemary grows up. You've got the thyme that'll flow over the edge and the oregano flow over the edge. You've got 3 beautiful tasting herbs there that can be grown in a pot and are difficult to kill, but are very useful.
Yeah.
So I would start with those types of things.
Do you recommend people getting into trying to reduce their waste by composting and worm farms and all that sort of stuff at the same time, or after they've grown a few things? Yeah.
No, I think start at the same time. And experiment with it. You can't really go wrong too much unless you're in like bear country or something. And you've got, you don't want to attract like big predators like grizzly bears to your back door if you're in Canada or something. I understand that. I get plenty of comments like that. Here I am burying fish heads and stuff in the backyard, and then I've got the Canadians saying, if I did that, I'd have a grizzly bear on my back doorstep.
How do you respond to that? Yeah, you probably would.
Yeah, you probably would. Yeah.
You could probably grow garlic too.
Yeah, I mean, the worst bear I got is maybe a koala, and they're vegetarian, so I'm pretty good with that. Yeah. But within reason, composting is easy. It's just decaying food. There is a real science to composting, and speaking of the UK, one of my YouTuber mates over there, Tony, he wrote a whole thick book on composting. So you can get very technical, but you don't have to. Composting is easy. It's just materials breaking down, really. Put a bit of soil over the top of it if you want to stop the smell, or just add extra brown stuff to the green stuff if it gets too stinky and sloppy. You can easily manage a compost pile yourself and break it down and then use that in the garden. And you can break down practically every kitchen scrap you've got, or you can just bury it. Like I mostly just bury stuff. If we don't give it to the chickens, like say if it's not chicken friendly, it might be potato skins or onion skins and stuff. Well, that can go into a compost bin and then with some extra greens, or it can be just simply dug a hole in a raised garden bed or in the ground about a foot deep and just throw it in there. That's going to be food for microbes, for worms, for fungi. All these types of things is going to increase the value of your soil in the garden bed. And so why would you put that stuff in the bin and get it to landfill when you could be improving your own soil?
Yeah, so you just need to think about closing the loop, I guess, when it comes to it. Yeah. Is there any common mistakes you see people making when they're trying to become a bit more self-sufficient?
It probably is overwhelming themselves. I've run into a few people just recently. Actually, I went to an event in Brisbane, a YouTuber called Bo Miles. He did a live event showcasing one of his videos in Brisbane at the theatre there. And I just happened to run into several people because I'm a YouTuber and they come up to me and all that. I always ask people, what are you growing? I like being approached. I mean, it feels great. And I like people shaking my hand and interacting with me. So if you're out there and you see me, come up and say hello. But 2 out of the 4 said that they stopped growing after COVID because they went into it and they got all these garden beds and then they got overwhelmed and it got too hard for them, and now they've stopped and sort of they're full of weeds and they can't get back into it. And that's exactly what I was saying before when we were talking about just starting small.
Yes.
Don't go and buy 10 garden beds and 50 fruit trees and try to plant them all out and then try to manage them. And then you go back to work and it gets all too hard because there's too much for you to do. Just chew off a little bit at a time, and that's the best way to do it.
Absolutely. You need to not forget that stuff will still be there the next year. You can add to it in time. It's not you're not just going to be growing one thing at a time, because people do that, don't they? I want this, I want that, I want this. It's start with that, and then you have that, and then you can add to it.
Exactly. Start with one lemon tree, and then you've got lemons. For probably 6 months of the year. You might preserve those lemons and have them for 12 months of the year. But if you've got lemon, orange, mango, and you're trying to look after them all, 3 of them die or all of them die because you can't manage it. Rather, if you just wanted to look after one lemon tree in a pot, you're laughing because that just doesn't take too much to look after.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Mark, I could chat with you for hours and hours about this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
do you mind hanging around and answering a few of the community questions?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So Leonard from Melbourne has asked, "Hi Charlie, I'm wanting to design and build a smallish greenhouse for the backyard. Now videos online are telling me hundreds of different things to do, so I wanted to know if there is anything you've learnt that I should be thinking about before I get going."
Yeah, that's a very good question, isn't it? I mean, if you wanted to just make something really cheap and easy, if you've got a raised garden bed, you can always turn that into a mini greenhouse by just using this is what I've done in the past, especially if it was just a temporary crop of something. I would just put some 25 mil piping over the beds with a couple of stakes that keep that piping nice and firm, and then you can put some shade cloth over the top of that, and you can get away with that for about, probably $80.
Yeah.
But I've got a mini greenhouse that I just use for seedlings, especially when the weather's a bit hot, just to keep them from getting too scalded and drying out too fast. You can get these mini greenhouses. There's a good range. If you look online, you can find mini greenhouses, really cheap ones, that will only cost $100 or so. So you can, depending on how much you want to spend, you can always get something within your price bracket.
Yeah, I think start small, like you mentioned, so you don't bite off more than you can chew, and actually work out what you want to use it for. I mean, being in Melbourne, it might be to keep seedlings warmer, to get them going, and
exactly.
Then work out exactly how much space you need, because there's no point over investing and getting something too big, because then you'll be stuck with a lot of useless space that you could be gardening with.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
All right. Also from Melbourne, Dylan has asked, "Hi Charlie, the episode with Hannah on composting and community was great. I would like to be more self-sufficient with my food and waste, but I work full-time and I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Brunswick. Any simple things I can do to start my own very small balcony or kitchen composter?" A worm farm would be a great thing to do here, I think. So
yeah, tops. Yeah.
Hannah was on the episode, and she takes all the community scraps in and she puts them in worm farms under her house.
Oh, brilliant.
And puts it back into the Verge gardens.
Oh, really?
Which is really fantastic. Yeah, amazing. But I would start a worm farm on your balcony would probably be the best thing to do. Make sure it's in a nice shady spot so you don't cook them. But
you can just compost in a bucket. If you work it right, it doesn't get too smelly. But you'd have to make sure, if you're on a balcony, that that you can capture any leakage or anything like that, and monitor it a little bit closely. Like I said before, if it's getting a bit sloppy or rotten, you want to add some sawdust or some hard carbon to it, dry grass and those type of things, so that you're breaking it down slowly. Something that apartment living people do gravitate towards, and the technology is improving more and more. So they've got now like bio-type bacteria to put in there to help it break down properly like it would be a normal compost. And sometimes you can there's some products out there that's coming on that you can just keep adding to. It's like a bin, and it'll just keep on composting in your kitchen.
Wow.
So there's a lot of innovative products coming out in this area of apartment living.
Oh, good. Just don't get a pet chicken. I would say.
Have you seen them in apartments?
Chickens? No, I haven't seen them. Really?
Yeah.
Nah.
It's a thing. They put nappies on them.
Is this like a Japanese cafe or something?
Chicken nappies, and so it catches the poop. Yeah.
I have a feeling my leg's being pulled here, but okay.
It's not. I've seen it with my own eyes.
I'll believe you then. All right, Sophie down in Hobart has sent through, "Hello, Charlie. I enjoyed your episode with Jan, who was expert on houseplants, but was keen to hear more about the best way to strike a cutting for indoor plants. I also try to propagate veggie seedlings with mixed success. Can you share some tips to help improve my strike rate?" So the way Jan does his indoor plants is he grows them on a moss pole, and they're an aeroid type plant. So as they grow up the moss pole, they put roots into the moss. And then you can literally cut the length that you want and then repot it up. So really simple to do.
Wow.
But I think, Mark, you'd probably be best to answer about improving strike rate when it comes to seedlings with veggies. What's your method?
Well, make sure you're growing them at the right time, because, temperature is everything with seeds especially. Nature has programmed seeds to germinate at a particular temperature, because it's usually dropped in the ground and covered by soil or compost. So if you've got the right temperature, that's going to help. That's the main thing, temperature and timing, the right time of the year. So if you are going to germinate early, maybe use a heat mat or something if you're in a cold climate, if you want to get early tomatoes and that. But if you try them too early without, say, heat or whatever and not the right temperature, you're not going to get very good strike rates.
Yeah, pop them somewhere nice and warm and you should have better success.
Yeah.
Because you grow so much and you've done it for so long, do you just know what to do when, or do you write it down and refer back to your notes?
My notes is usually my videos and my pictures. I take a lot of pictures and videos, and what I do is I put them in folders on my PC, the day, the month and the year, and then I can go back and see when these were taken and when they were done and what I grew in that last bed last year. But mostly I just remember, and I just know that I grew this particular crop, like tomatoes, in one bed 1 year, and I should really rotate them because, nematodes and pests. Whereas other crops like taro or sweet potato, you might be able to get several seasons in the one bed and just keep harvesting and that, because the pest buildup is a bit slower in those crops, but then eventually you'll have to move them because then you'll start getting even rodents coming to those tuber crops and starting to get used to going back to that same bed. And it's the same with pumpkins as well and other types of larger crops like that. Yeah.
We digress anyway. Okay, lastly, Erin from Mildura asks, "Hi Charlie, I heard your chat with Joanna about bees. I've got a decent sized block and I've always been interested in keeping bees. Is this actually feasible to do alone with no experience? Do you keep bees on your property?"
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And I have to get help, from a bee guy, who's Peter, who's really good. He's actually an engineer, but he does bees part-time and he's in my local area. And he's been teaching me. I think you need to have a mentor, or you need to really read up and learn bees. You do have to spend a bit of time with them. You can't just set and forget bees. You have to manage that hive. And I've only got one hive. And while I was away, that 4 weeks, I had to have Peter come in and look after them and check them out. Otherwise, like in our area, there's so many flowers and they can fill the hive up within a matter of weeks, depending on the time of year. And if they fill it all up and there's no room, they're going to bye-bye.
Yeah, see you later.
Go somewhere else. So, it's not something you can set and forget. So if you're dedicated, sure, bees are fantastic because they love your garden. They pollinate everything. You'll have bigger crops of everything. But you're going to have to look after them. They take a bit
of work. Yeah,
they do. Yeah,
I've put a small beehive in a city garden I did, but it was managed by somebody else. So they come. It's the small stingless native bees.
Oh yeah.
And you just pop the small hive down in a shady spot, and you can see them coming and going. They help with pollination, but someone comes and looks after them again in that matter. But something to definitely think about. Yeah,
native bees is a great option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a reminder, you can send through your questions at any time. Just email me at charlie@stihl.com.au. Mark, how can people find you if, obviously most people in this world know who you are now, but how can they find you if they don't?
Look, lots of people don't know who I am. Just Google Self-Sufficient Me or Mark Valencia, and it should come up with Self-Sufficient Me, and that's pretty easy. I'm on Instagram. I'm even on TikTok, although I'm not personally like...
You're not doing TikTok dances in the garden?
I have my 18-year-old do the TikTok stuff. He just pulls out all the stupid stuff and puts it on there, which the kids seem to like. But I'm on most platforms, Facebook and YouTube. And also you have a fishing channel as well, don't you? I do. Thanks for mentioning that. That's all right. My eldest, James, he runs that. It's called Self-Sufficient Me. So Self-Sufficient Me and Self-Sufficient Me. Yeah. Good stuff. Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate your time. I think our listeners will take a lot from that, and no doubt you'll have a few million more followers after this. Oh, yeah. Thank you. No, I appreciate it, mate. I really have admired your work, and I've watched so many shows with you on it. I just wrapped that you invited me on your show. Oh, you're too kind. The check's in the mail. Thanks, mate. See ya. Okay, see ya. On the next episode of That's How We Grow, it's going to be a bumper episode where I'm going to be joined by a very special guest, Australian garden legend and hairy little gnome, Costa Georgiadis.
You know, I had a badge of honour recently where I got a letter from the council saying your garden's overgrown.
He's a landscape architect, award-winning TV presenter, and an endless wealth of knowledge on all things green. Costa and I are going to be discussing our passions for gardening and landscape design, our love of the environment, and how communal gardens are paving the way to a happier and healthier Australia.
Listener.
Thanks for joining me on That's How We Grow, and thanks to STIHL for powering it all along. Remember, STIHL's battery-powered outdoor equipment is powerful, lightweight, quiet, and it gives you the power and performance you need to take care of some serious work in your garden. And with over 600 dealers across Australia, there's going to be one near you. Check out the full range and find your nearest dealer now at stihl.com.au.